Hello again. This video is about why wearing a heart rate monitor can be really useful even for beginner cyclists. The caveat here with any advice I'm giving is that if you've been relatively sedentary for a while, you should really be cleared by your doctor before you do a vigorous exercise. So, many people cycle for specific reasons and with specific goals in mind. It might be to lose weight, to build up to a long endurance ride, or whatever. So it's probably useful to be able to tell when you're riding whether or not what you're doing is actually contributing to the achievement of that goal. If you're an ordinary bod like me, you don't necessarily see your bike riding as training. You're just happily bimbling around on your bike enjoying the scenery. So it's easy to assume that the monitoring of heart rate is only for serious mega fit racers, as you'll hear lots of talk about training zones which are monitored by the use of a power meter or a heart rate monitor. But I think whatever your level, you may well find it useful. So keep watching. Heart rate monitors are relatively inexpensive compared to a power meter, the other method of controlling training zones. The latter costs hundreds of pounds, whereas a heart rate monitor will set you back around 20 or 30 quid. You'll need a head unit, like my Garmin here, or a mobile phone with an appropriate app. You can see here I've created a field on the unit to always show my heart rate during a ride and the heart rate zone that I'm in, which is the crucial piece of information. So I'm here to explain, hopefully in ordinary bloke language, what the training zones are and why the casual cyclist could benefit from using them. By doing this, you can open up a wealth of information that can explain why that last climb was harder than the last time you did it, or why you're not feeling able to do the distance you normally do, or why I'm not feeling it any more fit than a month ago, or why I'm not losing weight, and so on and so on. Heart rate zones are personal to the individual. You're not fitter or less fit than anyone else because your heart rate at a particular point is higher or lower than someone else. To set heart rate zones, you first need to establish two key pieces of information: your resting heart rate and your maximum heart rate. Your resting heart rate is simple to establish. Use your monitor to measure your heart rate before getting up in the morning when you're really rested, or take your pulse. 60 to 100 beats per minute is not unusual. It's affected by fitness level and age. It may get higher as you get older, and it will get lower as you get fitter. So it really is personal to each individual. I noticed that mine, as I've got fitter, mine has gone down in spite of the fact that I'm getting older. Once you know it with that information alone, you're already able to do some useful monitoring. Higher than normal resting heart rate can indicate oncoming illness, or you've been overdoing it possibly and haven't rested properly, which can help decisions regarding whether to go out on a ride or to put the kettle on and put your feet up. There are some generic calculations around which can help you calculate your approximate maximum heart rate, subtracting your age from 220 is one example. But as you can guess, this is a one-size-fits-all solution, which really assumes that everybody in a given age is of the same fitness, which of course is nonsense, and therefore not really that accurate.
I'm sorry to say, folks, the only way to get an accurate maximum heart rate is to suffer like hell, with a few minutes beasting, pushing yourself to the limit, I'm afraid. A simple way is to go somewhere quiet on your bike, ride at a steady pace to warm up for 15 minutes or so, and then bit by bit increase the pace until you're at the absolute maximum effort, to the point where you really feel you need to stop pedaling. All of this while sitting down in the saddle. At that point, when you feel you can't give any more, get out of the saddle and give it everything you've got for 20 seconds. Then record the highest heart rate in that final sprint for your maximum heart rate. You do have to be honest with yourself though and push this to your absolute limit, or you'll just be basing everything else on false information and fooling yourself.
And for those of you who would like to get fitter but don't feel that you're getting anywhere, just persevere, because literally 2 minutes after I've stopped, after hitting maximum heart rate, my heart rate's back in zone 2, back down to 108 beats per minute from 175 within such a short space of time. Now I can remember possibly where some of you are now when I do a 5% hill for about 300 yards and be slumped over my bike at the top. So persevere, and it's definitely worth it in the end. To set your heart rate zones, you should find that your head unit will just require to put your resting heart rate and your maximum heart rate in, and it will calculate the zones for you. If you look online, you'll find several versions of heart rate zones. Some say there are 6 zones, others say there are 5. They're all based on a percentage of your maximum heart rate, essentially. And I don't want anybody saying that their heart rate zone 2 is up to 72% and yours is only 70. There are slightly different versions. Just pick one and use the same one all the time and you'll be fine. I'm just recommending the one that is more simple to follow and is used by both Garmin and Wahoo. All that remains now is for you to keep an eye on which zone you're in when you're riding, and here is why you need to. Zone 1 is called the recovery zone for a reason. You may have aching leg muscles because of a long tough ride or a workout. I think putting your feet up with a cup of tea is the best medicine. Your muscles are aching though because of a build-up of lactic acid, and riding in this zone helps flush out the acid from your muscles. So straight away you can see the value of the heart rate monitor, but you really need to be staying in this zone for this to work. And because it feels like you're hardly riding, it's very easy to go into the next heart rate zone, which completely takes away the point of a recovery ride and may only add to your problems. So these rides are often spent in the little ring, spinning away and not going particularly fast for no more than an hour. Conversation should still be very easy in zone 2, with breathing just slightly heavier than in zone 1. It's an intensity that you should be able to hold easily for hours while you enjoy the scenery and chat to your mates. And it's called endurance zone for a reason too. Too many people, when training for a long event, train really hard to get fitter. It seems to make sense, doesn't it? But they should realise this less strenuous training zone is the ideal one for building up your ability to ride all day. So do yourself a favour, swallow that bravado and chill out in zone 2 more often than perhaps you do if you're looking to do long rides. The longer you spend in this zone, you'll be able to increase your speed whilst in it and still keep your heart rate in zone 2. Lots of time in this zone also teaches your body to burn fat rather than carbohydrate for energy. But equally, if you're not preparing for a long ride, staying in this zone won't help you with your fitness and strength. It just depends on what you're trying to do. So again, hopefully you see the value of wearing a heart rate monitor to help you stick in the right zone for your own required end result. So, zone 3, tempo or sweet spot or aerobic capacity. They don't really help us, do they, for having different names for the same thing. But anyway, it should be harder to talk now. Breathing is heavier. So a bit difficult, but nothing a new rider couldn't keep up for several minutes or so An experienced rider might even do an entire long ride in this zone. It is possible to spend too much time in this zone. It's not intense enough to build strength and lung capacity that the higher zones will do, but it's too intense for endurance. So you could end up feeling quite tired and not really having had any benefit. So if you feel over a period of time that you don't think you've made much progress, then you could well have spent too much time in this zone. Zone 4, threshold. This could also be called the shortness of breath zone. So if you think I'm going to be talking to you lot whilst pedaling in zone 4, you got another thing coming, I'm sitting this one out. It's called threshold because you're on the maximum level that lactate build-up can be used to help provide energy. Above this threshold, the acid isn't being used quick enough, leads to muscle fatigue, which is why zone 5 is so damn difficult. Cycling in zone 4 will help improve your endurance at high speeds, but you can't really keep it up for long, perhaps 10 to 30 minutes. For experienced cyclists, it might be 60 minutes, but it'll be so uncomfortable you really wouldn't want to be doing it, but you could. You won't be chatting to your mates, and you'll be feeling the burn in your legs after a short while as the lactate is now building up. For those of us who like leisurely rides, you're likely to only really spend a lot of time in zone 4 when you're doing long climbs, and perhaps don't really then have any control as to whether you creep into this zone or not because the hill is just too bloody hard. It improves your lung capacity and strength on the bike, which is probably why they say the only way to get better on hills is to do more hills. Because doing the hills forces you into zone 4, you get the benefits of improved lung capacity and strength, which then helps you be better on the hills the next time. And now you're about to see the state I was in when I was suffering, transitioning over that threshold into zone 5. And I warn you, it's not pretty.
VO2 max measures the volume of oxygen you can take in during your most intense exercise. The oxygen goes into your blood and the blood carries the oxygen to your muscles to create the chemical reaction resulting in the energy your muscles need. All that mouth wide open gasping at this time of the year catches you the occasional insect. Hopefully your tongue finds it quickly and is released back to the wild. You will be suffering in this zone, and if you can keep it up for around 8 minutes, you're probably not really in this zone and should check your equipment. Heavy breathing and no conversation apart from the odd curse and squeal maybe. This gives real lactic acid build-up in your muscles, which is why you can't really keep it up for long and reach the point where you have no choice other than to pedal slower, because you've reached the point where the amount of oxygen you're gasping to take in doesn't satisfy the amount your muscles are demanding. Short, intense sessions in zone 5 will make you a stronger cyclist and improve your heart's efficiency, which will help you suffer less on long hill climbs and other hard efforts.
Well, that's a lot of hard work to establish that your maximum heart rate is 175 when you probably thought it was around that mark anyway. Ah, God, don't you just love it? That was hard work just watching it again, to be honest. Anyway, recovery. Another benefit of wearing a heart rate monitor is your head unit will be able to advise you at the end of a ride how long you need to recover, because it knows how hard you've been working, which is particularly important if you've been doing some high intensity riding in zone 4 and 5. It's usually expressed in hours, but I was a bit perplexed when after my first day of 14 days on my Le Jog adventure last year, my Garmin was telling me I needed 4 days recovery. Now clearly that wasn't possible, but it did mean that maybe I'd been cycling too hard at the start of a multi-day endurance event, so I did begin to hold back on subsequent days. So it did me a favour really. So use your heart rate monitor to control what zones you need to be in. Many newer riders find staying in the lower heart rate zones difficult for 2 reasons. It takes discipline to stay in zone 2 if it's actually feeling too easy, but also on hills in particular, somebody with lower fitness may have the opposite problem and struggle to keep in heart rate zone 2 because it's got too hard and stray into the higher heart rate zones. If long sportives are your goal, developing this skill is crucial. So when you first start out, choose flatter routes, easier gears, sit behind other riders if that helps. But on endurance rides in particular, stick to zone 2 if you can. As you get fitter and more efficient on the bike, it will get easier and you'll go faster in that zone. Right, Clive. I've done it all in zone 2. Good man. How the hell do you manage to keep that going?
Clive knew that if he let his heart rate race on Cheddar Gorge, he would be damaging his chances of completing the event without a struggle, so stayed in zone 2 and climbed slowly. Great discipline compared to this rubbish attempt on Ditchling Beacon. I could have pedalled slower, I didn't, strayed into zone 5 and paid the price. I love the unwritten rule in cycling. If you see a fellow cyclist on the side of the road, just check that everything's okay.
Yeah, I'm just filming something else.
What a gentleman.
Bear in mind, if you are struggling to stay in zone 2, think back to when you tested to ascertain your maximum heart rate. Remember that when you beasted yourself? Did you really give it your all? Did you? Really? If your maximum heart rate isn't accurate, you will struggle to stay in some zones because they're set incorrectly. If you're sure the zones are set accurately and you're quite new to cycling, then just persevere. It takes time for your body to adapt, and initially your heart rate will go higher quicker than you thought it would, but this will change over time. And a word about maximum heart rate. Many new cyclists who are not used to monitoring heart rate will worry that they're going to hurt themselves if they hit maximum heart rate. Don't worry about hitting it or exceeding it. You'll know you're there without even seeing the number on your head unit. You will automatically start holding back, as basically that's the body's natural reaction. You can sustain maximum heart rate for a minute or 2, but it's hell. And you burn plenty of matches if you've got a lot more riding still to do. Ordinary bods like me, who are not racing, are more likely to hit maximum heart rate when working too hard up a climb. If so, slow your cadence down and watch your heart rate on the head unit gradually fall, and you'll be able to complete the climb. And if that doesn't work and you're still hitting max and can't get it down, just get off and walk, because the hill is obviously too bloody steep. I hope that's helped understand heart rate zones a bit better, and why even a novice cyclist should use, or at least think about using, a heart rate monitor and establish their personal heart rate zones. Heart rate is not a perfect metric. We need to remember heat, hydration, quality of sleep, and emotional stress can all affect your heart rate in one way or another. So simply overdressing on a hot summer ride and overheating can increase your heart rate more than you would perhaps expect to see it at that pace. As with diets, when we talk about a balanced diet being better than a fad diet that focuses on one narrow food group, you're really better having a balanced range of training or riding, incorporating all the heart rate zones. High intensity to help convert fat to muscle, strengthen your legs for better climbing, and aid quicker weight loss. Low intensity to be able to do longer rides, improve your endurance, and to look up and enjoy the scenery. And of course, if you've had some really intense rides, recovery rides in zone 1 are essential. Being able to keep an eye on and control which zone you're in with a heart rate monitor is really useful, even if you're not a serious athlete. If you found this useful, please give the thumbs up below and consider subscribing to my channel. Believe it or not, comments, likes and subscribers help the YouTube algorithm to decide to push my videos in front of other cyclists. That's just the way it works. So it's really helpful for the growth of my young channel. And as usual, I do really appreciate it if you do that. So that's all for me. Keep eating that essential cycling fuel, cake. Happy cycling, and I'll see you soon.